Hello and welcome to Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. This is Cyrus, and tonight we're taking a look at Jurgen Ziewe's work as he answers some specific detailed questions about what awaits us on the quote, other side, the afterlife, based on his decades of experience as an out-of-body explorer. So if you are not that familiar with Jurgen's work, this is a great way to get introduced to it. You can hear what he has to say and how it lines up with a lot of other people's experiences. A lot of consistency as well as with my own experiences. But we're also going to analyze some of the things that he says and see if it lines up with what I think and my experiences, or maybe there's a few disagreements. So again, this is a specific information related to what happens after you die, what happens after all of us die, the types of environments that we typically go into. This is a field filled with false prophets and new age gurus and bad information, people coming at the subject from a position of service to self, selling information and trying to ultimately become figureheads for their own self-serving interests, often making information up in the process, whatever it takes to whether it's sell books or gain popularity or gain power. And that's been happening for a very long time, gaining access to other dimensions, the other side, making it into like this divine venerated subject, and then using that as a position of authority to amass power. We've always seen this happen in this new era, this new age of awakening. It is time that we have to fight against that and wake up. And how do we do that? By accurately finding information and assessing it and implementing it into our lives, and doing it without following gurus and without turning people into the divine embodiments, without using this information to put people, into a status that they don't belong. For example, even out-of-body experiences or mediumship and a lot of these powers, psychic powers, these are actually normal things, and by all means they should be increasing in potential, increasing in how commonplace we find them in society. As more people practice these things, more people get good at it. There's nothing divine about it, and the other side is an element of science. It's an element of unknown physics that we haven't yet tapped into, and that's really what it comes down to. So I'm sorry for going on this tangent or on this rant. Let's jump into the video, but first, a couple quick notes. You are watching Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics, where we talk about these types of things. It may not be for you. If it is for you, then I recommend going down, hitting that subscribe button, liking the video, sharing the video. All that will go a long way to help keep the channel going. Especially you can share this video to people who may be new to the subject of life after death and the whole concept that we go to different dimensions after we die. It's such an important part of life that most people don't know about. The next point, a couple quick updates from my end. So I'm going to actually attempt to begin putting up almost daily videos again as my schedule kind of evens out. Been a lot of running around and traveling and being in places with weird internet connections. I'm in Bangkok, Thailand at the moment, which doesn't have the best connections, mind you, but I'm not in a hostel anymore. I'm in my own apartment. As one commenter points out, it does still look like I'm in a Thai prison, or I'm in a prison block. I know, okay, look, I don't have the ability to have a nice, cool backdrop in my videos because I go from place to place, city to city, country to country as a kind of spiritual nomad, and so I don't have that luxury to be able to set up a high budget production. This is just me talking or talking to guests and exploring topics, pretty rudimentary stuff. Maybe someday I will have a whole studio and I'll have all kinds of cool stuff, but we're not there yet. Okay, with that said, let's jump into this video and we'll explore. This is part 4, so it's called Afterlife Answers by Jurgen Ziewe, and there's 5 parts to this. I recommend watching all of them. You can find them at his channel, Jurgen Ziewe. You can see how it's spelled on the screen, and you can subscribe to his channel and check it out and watch all of them. I'm just going to do this video because I don't have couple hours to spare, and I think it's the meatiest video. So we can begin with this and hear what Jurgen has to say. And let's just point out real quick the question that's being asked to Jurgen. What is your experience of food and drink in the astral world? Is it true that it is only in the lower astral that people eat food? The question itself, it kind of hints at a misconception. And Jurgen goes into this, but it's the idea that it's only in the, quote, lower or really bad environments that we do these gross physical things like eat food, right? So when you have an experience on the other side and like you're eating or you're with your family, deceased family members, so you guys are having dinner, people think, oh no, they must be in hell because they're still doing earthly habits. That's just new age mumbo jumbo, okay? So that's not the way the other side works. There's replicas of this environment. There's replicas of this entire planet that people experience. No one is judging anybody about eating food or having astral physical bodies. Nobody except us. Nobody except people on this side who are listening to gurus and being, fed bad information. On that side, these aren't things that people worry about. So let's hear what Jurgen has to say.
That's a really interesting question because we see food as such a physical activity which maintains our physical body, and if we don't have any food, the body will die, and as a result of it we will die. Or if we don't have the right food, we suffer from malnutrition. And all these things have conditioned us to believe that food is a purely physical thing, but this is not the case. I and many other people who have been astral traveling have had experiences that food is prevalent on the astral plane, because food is also a symbol, is a metaphor. Very often when I have been on the astral level through out-of-body experience, food is used as a means to socialize, to bring people together. But also the other thing is our senses on the astral level are heightened. Not only do we see better and hear better and smell better, touch better and feel more, we can see a much greater variety of colors, a much greater spectrum, whereas here our sense of visual senses are restricted to between 350 and 650 millimue. Which is the wavelength of the visible light. On the astral plane, our sense of vision is enhanced to a much greater degree. And that applies to all the other senses. And our sense of taste also is enhanced. And then there's another thing. As I said right from the beginning, the best way to look at reality generally is seeing reality in terms of energy. Okay, and energy packages. And so what we do if we help a person in this life and we console them, and we give them actually a package of energy. If we comfort them, we give them a package of energy which is packaged on the astral plane in a positive emotional way. And so the energy is actually feeding their astral body. Now, on the astral plane, we also create energy packages, and they can have the various kinds of metaphors. They can be love, but they can also have the metaphor of food. So what we very often find that when we go on the astral plane, there are very rich gardens with fruit, and this fruit, if we eat this fruit, we will find we are energized. Or if we go, let's say, we find a beautiful clear stream of water, and we dive into the water, we feel energized, we will feel a sense of refreshment, not just physical refreshment, but also spiritual refreshment. So so I was very surprised when I found on one astral journey there were people lying on the roadside and they looked as if they were asleep. And when I asked what these people are doing, and then the person told me they are on drugs. And that really threw me, because I thought, why would people on the astral plane take drugs? And then I found out much later that there are energies which can have a similar effect as they have here. They can take people onto a higher energy level. They connect them, because they are energy packets, like you would find an energy packet here in LSD, which works on the certain nerve cells and takes people into a higher state of consciousness. Now the thing is, at the base level of all reality is just that, is consciousness. There are metaphors which are packets of energy, of consciousness, which are configured in various ways. So people who for example, on the astral plane, who cook or who cater, they're putting things into food which is not just ingredients, they're putting love into it. And the way the love shows is by the rich display of the food. And I've been on astral levels where there was, people were catered. They had a very big spread of all kinds of food that people could choose from. And they're very, very beautifully displayed. And when I met my mother, she too invited me to meet her friends, and there was this beautiful spread of food. And very often I find people on the astral plane, they have food stalls where they give chocolates to people, and all kinds of things. Or you can, for example, pick a flower, and if you see beautiful gardens and with a rich abundance of flowers, you pick a flower, and you not just pick the flower, but you pick the energy of the flower, the love energy, and this immediately sort of radiates onto you, and before you know, the flower you've just picked is replenished. It hasn't actually disappeared, but it's still there. If anything, the flower that is being replaced is even better, because it has enriched you. And so this interchange of energies on the astral plane is very, very powerful and very profound. So these metaphors of energies which are displayed in fruit gardens or in food or in flowers in abundance, this becomes richer and richer the higher the level of consciousness rises. So you will find incredible paradisical garden, because the world is brimming with positive energy, with love. And then if you can take this to any level you like, on even much higher level, you go through sceneries which are providing you with an abundance of love and joy and up to a point of ecstasy, where you go through more and more abundant worlds full of light and love, and this is almost impossible to describe. So that's basically what I have to say about food. Food is basically a metaphor of energy, a manifestation of energy that can have a number of different forms. People give each other tokens on the astral plane. That can be a beautiful flower or a gift, or a bit of jewelry. I remember my wife, when she lost a friend of hers, she went to see her before she died, and she was in a very, very bad state, in a state of fear, and my wife tried to help her, but she couldn't actually do much with her, because she was not receptive. And then a month later, she said, I had an incredible dream. My friend came to me and she gave me a massive diamond. And when I took the diamond, I felt an incredible love from her. So this friend of hers after being dead for a few months, she realized what Julia was trying to give her, and she felt the full impact of it. And then she used the metaphor of a diamond and gave it to Julia in her dream. But it was not just a diamond; it was also a repayment in terms of a package of positive love energy. And so this is how we have to see how the astral level sort of is configured for us, you know.
Wow, so there's a lot to unpack in that, and just from the topic of food, who can imagine that there's so many different ways we can, look into the multidimensional subject from a basic question like that. But it's interesting to think, so what is this? Is a nice mug of Thailand brand 3-in-1 instant mocha. It's made of mostly chemicals, I think, probably horrible chemicals that will do terrible things to my body, as well as caffeine. And what can we think of this? I mean, we can think of the coffee itself as a metaphor and as the taste. And that's something that Jurgen didn't get into, is the taste. So what is that metaphor exactly? We could say that because a taste can represent something. A taste can represent a mood, an emotion, an idea, a feeling that is kind of unique all in its own. And so I often say taste is a kind of God-given ability that we have. That one of the main senses that we use it on a biological level, but it definitely has higher dimensional components as well. And so Jurgen, I think, did forget to talk about taste. So coffee itself has a taste. What does coffee taste like? It has a robust taste. This itself could be a metaphorical type of thing. I mean, when we think of coffee, it brings about a certain level of feelings, ideas, concepts. Whether it is like your what's the old joke? Like, I like my women like I like my coffee, strong and black, whatever it might be. When we think of coffee with milk, and it brings about a certain feeling compared to drinking black coffee. It also relates to our personality attributes. It's people who enjoy pure black coffee compared to people like me who drink coffee with milk and sugar. It says something about us in a special way. And it's a very basic example, but there's a metaphorical component to all of that relates to who we are, how we view ourselves, the taste, and something that we can enjoy, and we can enjoy in a kind of meditative way. I love tea, and so drinking tea is part of that. It's like I need to focus my thoughts on something, get my mind off other things. I make some tea, and it's almost like a ritualistic thing. And this is why the Japanese have the Japanese tea ceremony. The Ethiopians have the coffee ceremony. And that's just one example of many. And it talks about the importance of this, of what our energy packet, so that the caffeine is an energy system that interacts with the energy inside of your energy system, which is your body, and for a specific effect. So who knows to what extent those effects may exist on other dimensions, and how it is a transference of energy that can create these effects. That it's one of the reasons that ultimately we need to have some kind of a body apparatus on the other side, the astral body, so that we can interact and have those effects. So you still have to have some kind of an astral digestive system that even if it doesn't process the food into waste products like it does for us, it must still sort of disperse it into your chakra system, into your energy points in specific ways, depending on what it is that you've eaten. And so this becomes kind of the purpose or the mechanics of eating on that side. And probably a lot more we can get into later on this subject. But for those who are new at all this, it gives you an idea of the relationship between this world and that world, the similarities between these worlds, and what you can expect after you die, which is, for the most part, immediately after you die, you can expect probably things to be so similar at first to this world that you might not know that you died. And that's just something Jurgen talks about, something I talk about. Swedenborg talks about this. It's just like waking up, and many spiritualist sources talk about this also. And I really want to bring up one more thing as well, before I possibly forget about it, which is Jurgen let's see if I can go through my very messy desktop and find exactly what the screenshot was. Jurgen, he had a little bit of a conversation or a debate with an individual who was on the forums about the topic of food, because somebody responded to this video straight away and immediately said you cannot eat or drink on the afterlife because we're all formless spirits, right? And Jurgen had made a very interesting response to that, which I'm going to bring up right now. We can take a look at. Since we're on, I mean, this is turning into more of a video about food, but I'm going to get into the next topic momentarily. I know it's a long video, but I think it's a good one. Okay, so this is a response to on the Afterlife Research Educational Institute Facebook group, where Jurgen responded to an individual who basically what this individual said was, it was a very silly comment, because he or she was like, in response to the video, no, you can't eat or drink on the afterlife because we are spirit now. We don't have physical things. I hope that helps. Thanks. Like, what? You're kind of a little passive aggressive, huh? Anyway, so Jurgen made this epic response. And so Jurgen says, that is not my experience. I had hundreds of visits to the astral level over a 50-year period, and these observations tie in with other experiencers such as Cyrus Kirkpatrick, as well as many other explorers. I had thought I explained it in the video regarding food, but obviously not well enough. What does it even mean for you when you say you are a spirit? Do you assume you are made out of air when you die? I've been arguing this for so long. And look, in the defense of some people who say this, I think you can become air, you can become bodiless, formless. It's just that when you're interacting in a civilization with all your friends and family and everything, like, you don't really want to. And this is something that I've spoken to people on that side about, that they actually would find it to be a nuisance or a bad thing if they became bodiless, because then they wouldn't be able to interact. And we go into that whole weird concept of that, you can lose your astral body for some reason. Sometimes for weird, like, physiological reasons, like you decided to take somebody tricks you into taking a visit to the surface of the astral sun, and your body is evaporated, and now you're bodiless, and it's a little bit annoying because now you can't interact, you're bodiless, and you have to create a new astral body. So yes, you can be formless, you can be bodiless, you can be air, but this is not necessarily the default state. On that side, we adapt into different bodies for different conditions, whether it's light bodies in higher dimensional realms, or denser astral bodies in the more, I guess, dimensionally neighboring types of realms. But I've always argued, and this is the ongoing kind of debate in the groups, is that this is more of the default setting, is that you cross over, you have a body. And it's different in the body you're in now, but you're not a wisp of smoke. And you're definitely not a wisp of smoke if you don't want to be, against your will. And this is what causes so many people anxiety, because they don't want to become like that. So anyway, Jurgen continues. What does it even mean for you to say you're a spirit? Do you assume you are made out of air when you die? Not a chance. When we die, we simply assume a higher vibrating form of energy. And we are in a vibrating form of energy right now. It's just that you assume a higher level of this. You could say a higher density level to those of you guys who are into the Law of One books, which looks and feels just as physical as this one we carry now when seen from the same higher vibratory level. It is important that we finally start dispelling the myth that we turn into vaporous mist when we die, or luminous bubbles, or unsubstantial nebulous spirits without any substance. I think he's been listening to my material too much. I hope this kind of faulty belief will be finally rooted out the more people start sharing their actual observations and not rely on redundant fantasies and old-fashioned beliefs. That's what it really is. We need to see the other dimensional side as a place that's a continuation of this world, because that's what it is. As difficult as that is to in some ways to believe, because we've been taught different things, and some new age teachers say the same things. All my accounts are based on direct observations, not on belief, nor are they made up or reproduced from hearsay. We can build a reliable picture if we find corroborating independent reports based on actual observation. This is as close to science as we can get on these levels. Maybe we'll find some more scientific approaches in the future. I know Gary Schwartz is definitely doing that. So I don't know if it's the closest we can get to science, but it's a scientific, well, it's more of a judicial approach than it is scientific. It's based more on like analyzation of evidence. That's not necessarily like peer review blinded studies or anything like that, but it is a form of evidence, and it's a strong form of evidence. All right, so let's get out of here and let's get back to the video. So this is the next subject. I'm just going to cover this one and leave the rest for you to watch yourself, because this is the next very meaty, interesting topic where maybe I disagree with Jurgen a little bit. So let's explore why. Maybe while you're watching the video, you can think, where will Cyrus possibly disagree a little bit? So we can play that game and see if you can guess. Okay, but still a great answer to this question, which is, you talk about people carrying on their occupation in the Earth-like astral world, sometimes doing meaningless work. I'm probably going to have a few things to say about this, so let's listen.
Now that is a really interesting thing, because as we all know, the astral level is divided into the astral world is divided into energy levels or vibrationary levels, which are from dull to very fine and very high frequency energy. The slowest level of energy is also a diminishing of light, so it is a dark level, a twilight zone. And the reason that is usually negative feelings create this world. Negative feelings, resentment, all these sort of type of negative feelings which people carry around with them. And very often people go through life and they're neither on a positive nor on a negative level. They just plod along. They're not actually, the life is not punctuated with great bursts of light and love and joy, and so they're going through life, going to work, they're going into a routine, they're coming out of it again, and there are not much high points in it. There may be, but they're very often very temporary. So the Earth-like astral level is very much a reflection of our physical world. You know, it has got the same grayness, the same mundane appearance. It has got the same signs of decay as it has here.
And I'll just jump in and add, yes, I totally agree at this point, because we've both seen this earthly replica world, or if you even want to call it a replica, but it is true, and there's so many people go there. And but I want to point out, it doesn't mean that it's a, quote, bad place. And so we always think in this human terms of, good, bad. It's not quite like that, because even a world that's like this one, it's decaying. I mean, we ourselves, maybe some of us, are higher dimensional beings or old souls, and we choose to come to this world, which is even worse than the astral world, right? Very specifically, like, we go out of our way to incarnate here. And look at what a mess this place is. So it doesn't mean that being there means that you're unadvanced, you're a unevolved entity. It means that you have a purpose in a particular place, which sometimes, though, that purpose is not crystallized as well when it's in a higher plane. When I think in the higher planes, there's different types of challenges compared to the ones in other types. And I think souls in general, at least human souls, are attracted to challenges, projects, fixing things, developing things, working on things, and evolving, expanding, and especially helping other souls who are all, we're all kind of part of the same greater soul, and ultimately helping different facets of the great soul, right? And so it doesn't mean that this astral world is a bad place. And I think it's something very important to point out. And I know Jurgen actually agrees. I've heard him say similar things. But I just wanted to put that in there real quick.
And people who go to the near Earth level, they probably won't even recognize that they are on the astral level, because everything looks very, very much the same as it does here. And so people who, for example, have been sort of doing very mundane work, there is no reason for them to change their work and to do anything different. So people who have been working in an office, and I wrote a report some time ago where I visited the astral world where people were working in offices. Now the office work can be, on one hand, it can be real work. For example, they may actually be organizing something. They may be organizing an event. They may be organizing people. On the other hand, they may just be office people living in or working in offices, and then they just socialize in these offices, and do very little work, because there is really not much point in doing any work, So basically the main place of them working in offices, they may be shuffling around papers, or they may be carrying things from one part of the office to another. They may even adopt or recreate a certain meaningful task. There may other people who invent these tasks, but this is a very strange way of actually carrying on what people are used to. So we find people who carry on with their jobs. There are taxi drivers, there are bus drivers, there are people who go on these buses and are traveling around on buses, because also very often people are not aware that there is a much easier way of transport. But because the energy is generally so low, they're depending on public transport, For example, on this level, you don't see people flying, and I have tried to, during out-of-body experiences, I've tried to show people, look, why don't you fly, And inevitably the answer was, it's too much effort. They much rather walk, and it's to do with the energy. The moment you want to fly on the lower astral levels, the only way you make it possible is to summon up some positive energy, and that lifts you literally up into the air. And that's what I observed, that people are so used to their energy level, they find everything is a big effort. In my book, Vistas of Infinity, I described a man who had a boat, and he was inviting the newcomers onto his boat, and he gave them a tour of the lake on the boat. And I spoke to him. He said every time he does a tour on his boat with the newcomers, his boat improves. His boat is better. Before it was just a small boat. Now it had an upper deck and a lower deck. And he said, and he now has also a music band playing. So every time he does this kind of service for the newcomers, it makes them feel good and shows them around, his life improves and his job improves. His boat becomes bigger, and so people find they're carrying on with their job and their occupation. And for example, a taxi driver, for example, his life will gradually improve because he does people a service. And the other thing is, of course, there's also the feeling, and I've discussed it also with Cyrus, when people, for example, feel an obligation to feel grateful, very often they pay them with money. And the money is quite a funny thing. You wouldn't think that is needed, and is not, but people accept the money as a token or as a metaphor of their gratitude.
And yeah, so I talk about this. If you can search the channel, there's a video. It's like money and economics in the afterlife, something like that. If you search the channel, you'll find it. I made it quite a few months ago, but yeah, and it's also there's a lot of other videos as well. If you go through the archives of this channel, by the way, they're all I think watchable at any time. It's not time sensitive content. You can watch my old videos from any point. 10 years from now, I think it'll still be relevant. But anyway, let's keep listening.
So on these lower levels, we still find we have money, and there are people in pubs. They serve beer, and they accept the person when they pay for their beer. They accept what the person is really trying to do is say thank you, so they take the money, and that's a very interesting thing.
And you're still not going to get me and Jurgen to drink ale even on the astral plane. That stuff is gross. Whether it's on even it could be ale on like a higher dimensional astral plane. Ale is still gross. You can give me craft beer anytime. I don't know what the Brits are thinking with that, like stale, bitter ale stuff. But anyway, let's continue.
Very, very much so. We on the lower Earth, near Earth dimensional level, it's very, very much like it was before, so people won't notice much of a difference, really. But the good thing is, of course, people who have craftspeople, who have been builders or architects, they're very highly sought after because they can enrich other people's lives by helping them designing or building their house. And that sort of works, this sort of system of commerce works really well because it gradually brings people forward. It gets them out of their status and takes them into a higher level of consciousness after a while.
Okay, so I don't think we're going to get to this next question. You'll have to go watch it yourself to hear what Jurgen's answer is about the next topic. But you might be wondering, what would I have possibly disagreed about with Jurgen? And the thing I might disagree with a little bit concerns the concept that people might be doing meaningless or useless work. I say this because, as Jurgen himself said, this near-Earth level can be so similar to the Earth we're on right now. It wouldn't be necessary to do meaningless work. It would only be meaningless in the sense that, people are performing tasks which they wouldn't have to if they were to just expand their consciousness abilities a little bit further. So I guess to use an office reference, if you have Dunder Mifflin Paper Company on the astral plane that's producing paper, it would be a bit redundant given that it's probably possible to replicate paper products using your mind, which you wouldn't be able to do here. So the existence of that company would be predicated on a kind of ignorance about what is possible on that side. But unfortunately, that ignorance is pervasive on the near-Earth astral, or the astral Earth. Most people pass away, they have no understanding of consciousness or the afterlife, and they just find they're in a new, somewhat slightly different environment, and then they just adapt to it and accept it as their reality. And they don't understand that you can replicate things with your mind, or you could fly if you learned how to. They know in rumor that these things are possible, and people pursue these topics and they do advance. They tell their friends, so people know about it. But it's like people they don't quite have the ability to go to those levels yet. And so they're kind of stuck in this one way of being, even though there's a lot of like things that we would consider extremely supernatural happening around them every single day. But they don't, they don't always see the big picture. So you'll have a Dunder Mifflin producing paper, and the CEO of that company just doesn't quite get it. Now, I wouldn't put my astral stocks in that company because, eventually, maybe the owner will realize this is stupid, and they'll stop making paper products. But when you have the human resource department at Dunder Mifflin on the astral plane, they're not doing meaningless work in the sense that they are operating a system, just like here. In this case, it's an astral corporate system, and there's as many astral corporations as there are Earth plane corporations. Even ones that directly carry over to that side, and many, many new ones. I mean, you'll see cars on the astral plane made by companies that only exist on that side, and you'll see cars made by Toyota. If our civilizations were more advanced, we could be literally exchanging information with astral corporations or whatever. Probably the military does this kind of thing on those secret levels, for all we know. But I don't think anybody does truly meaningless work. Only meaningless in the perspective that it is redundant if you were to just expand your abilities. You wouldn't have to do those types of things. So I think people are still rational enough that they wouldn't just exist in an office, I think, just to socialize, unless it became clear at some point in the existence of, astral Dunder Mifflin, that the company is pointless, but everyone has a social life and an existence in that company. They don't want to give it up. And so eventually, like, paper products stop getting made, but people keep coming back to the office anyway. That would be pretty funny. Maybe Jurgen has seen something like that. It wouldn't surprise me if something like this was happening. But people I've met who work in corporate environments on that side, I've met, like, software engineers, for example, and people who do work on real tangible stuff. And not everyone is completely ignorant, even on the astral earth plane. So you might have people developing technology that directly benefits their world in real ways, and then also could even benefit our world. Technologies that they invent there, and then they help bring that information to us through channeling or mediumship or intuition. So, even some of our technology we see here could have come from that side originally, and then it was kind of brought by means of intuition. So there's a lot of ways to dissect that topic, pretty big topic, and that's another way of understanding life after death. To quote the title of my first book, is by looking at these details, these specific details, which Jurgen has illuminated in this video, and which hopefully I've added some clarity or alternate perspectives about to further help understanding. So I hope you liked this video. A couple quick things. You can support this work by becoming a patron at patreon.com/afterlife topics. The $29 and above level automatically gets you into our VIP classes, where we do the bi-weekly meetups and guest interview behind the scenes, chances to meet guests and discuss big topics, as well as guaranteed comes with one-on-one coaching and consultation with myself. So if you want to see this work continue to happen, because if I have to, if I can't generate some kind of revenue from all this, then I have to go into other kinds of work to keep myself fed, and then this stuff will I'll be far less active and able to keep this going. So I do rely on people like you to keep this keep this whole thing going. So you can do that at the Patreon. It's in the description down below. Or don't forget to join the Facebook group, Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics, or grab a book like Understanding Life After Death, or one of Jurgen's books like Multi-Dimensional Man. So I hope this video was of benefit to you. And that's it for now, and I will see you all soon on the next Afterlife topic.